brings the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
And very pleasant good afternoon on this Friday for many, last work day of the year. Everywhere I went today, I said, well, you'll be back next week. I'll be back on the 5th or whatever. But we'll be around. Don't go despairing. We are here today and a really good show on tap. A lot of guests, a lot of reflection on the year as we begin to head toward the Christmas break for at least a lot of people, and bowl games begin tomorrow morning. So this long week of no football has come to an end. We'll grab your calls, as always, at 855-242-7285. We'll take some phone calls pretty quickly here and look forward to hearing it. And great guest list. Larry Scott, Pac-12 Commissioner. We'll get his take. Butch Jones, the Tennessee coach, will drop by. Willie T. Smith in Greenville on What's Up with Spurrier. Charles Davis, the voice of Fox Sports College Football. And one of the special conversations of the year with Archbishop Joseph Marino. He will join us for an extended period of time as we shut it down today in the final hour. We'll talk a little about his year. For those who don't know, I'll introduce him a little more detail later, but he's become a very close friend of ours here at the show and to my family as well, and he'll visit with us and also take your calls as we reflect on the year and look forward to Christmas. And today we have some pretty heavy-duty guests, as you can see and hear, but also as you start to wind up that final weekend before the holidays, people do get reflective, and for a very, very good reason. So that is where we are on the program. A little bit of news making the rounds, and we'll certainly get into all of it today. But bowl games begin at 11 o'clock in the morning. Corn is popping.
I've got to get this off my chest early today. Should I refer to you as President Roosevelt this afternoon? We're going to have ourselves a fireside chat.
We are going to, yeah.
If you don't see on radio, Paul has a Yule log over his left shoulder this afternoon. But
man.
I
got burned, by the way.
As far as reflecting, we had Mark Kubiak and I, we were just in here a few minutes ago talking about what this year has been, a transition, and we can't do it without the callers to this show, the people, the culture that is SEC football, not only in the South but across the country. That's the best part. I think we've taken calls from different countries as well this year. But as we move forward, I don't think we would be able to do what we've done without, I think, the people, the listeners, and the viewers changing with us.
Yeah, and that's for those who have been with us for a long time. The last 2 years have been tumultuous, and I realize a lot of people are watching right now or listening who don't know all the backstory on this show, but it was a little over a year ago, right after Alabama won the national championship game against Notre Dame, that this show went off the air. It went off the air because of contractual reasons, which I will spare you. I eventually went to work for ESPN, and we came back on the air, so we started the show over again after a pretty long absence for ESPN. It was, and then we had about 9 months of transition from radio to radio and television. So there has been a long climb for everyone, and you hear it sometimes from when callers say, "Hey, what happened to this?" or "This isn't the same," and all we're saying is we appreciate all of you, for particularly those who have been with us a very long time, for hanging with us as this show has evolved, and it's still evolving. I don't know where it is, but we made it to the end of the year, so I guess that's good.
Yeah, and not only are we making it to the end of the year, we're embarking on something that has never happened before. I mean, we're about to head into what may be the biggest New Year's in college football history. I mean, let's not forget about that. These games on New Year's Day, have you seen anything like it in the industry? Yes, you've been around national championship games, but
it's a little hard to say yet. And I will say this because we're 14 days out, but the one thing that I'm already detecting, though, is that the two semifinal games, won't seem as big until we get there, because we're so used to this mammoth build-up to the BCS. And this could be wrong. I could be wrong, but there's so many other games going on that it's hard to just stop and go, okay, let's only talk about the two games on the first. They are the most important games in college football history, but I'm not sure until that week it will all be quite focused in, because next week, no matter what you say, it's a lost week. Christmas week, there are games, but most people won't remember them.
You know what's interesting in what the college football playoff has done is, I mean, someone like yourself who's been in this industry for a long time around the game of college football, this is as new for you as it is for, say, someone who's watched college football for the first time this season. We're all kind of living in this moment together. And I think you're absolutely right. We're used to that 40-day layoff. Now we're going to get these semifinal games, and then, what is it, 12 days later?
Yeah, I think the big part of this has already happened. It's the conversation going into the season, the conversation during the season, and then what we saw culminating 2 weeks ago. I think the big story is going to be, this is easy for me to predict, will be on January 2nd. When we wake up, boom, the two losers forgotten about. Just like the AFC and the NFC championship game. It's going to be that. The next morning, the Super Bowl is on, and that's what we will have on this.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Larry Scott is the very successful commissioner of the Pac-12. Many have credited him for transforming that league. They have their own network and a team, of course, in the college football playoff. Larry Scott joins us. Let's talk a little bit about the first year. You're certainly one of those people in college athletics that played a big role in all of this. How do you think it's gone so far before we see the first game?
I'm delighted by how it's gone. We knew the playoff would take college football to the next level by opening up the postseason to even more teams. But I think for most of us, success in the first year has exceeded expectations, and I think for ESPN in terms of the TV ratings it has as well, and there's been a nice trickle down to anyone involved with the regular season and the championship games. Just a level of interest amongst the fans, the excitement around it, and I think it's showing up in the ratings as well.
In terms of how it played out, there has been a lot of controversy, and I don't know where we are. We haven't even seen the semifinals yet, but as we look forward, what would you recommend, if anything, to change the way it was done or in the way it will be done in the future?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I guess what I'd say, Paul, is I don't think the fact that there's controversy is either a surprise or is problematic. We knew when we designed it by only going to a 14 playoff that there would be at least one of the major conferences on the outside looking in, and maybe more than one. So I think we went in eyes wide open, knowing that there'd be some controversy, some frustration, and immediate calls to expand the playoff to 8 or maybe beyond. But a little controversy is probably very healthy and helps spur some of the interest. In terms of changes from next year, I actually think it went extraordinarily well. I thought the committee did an outstanding job. They certainly seemed to emphasize the principles that we as the commissioners asked them to emphasize, kind of reinforce, who you play, who you beat, strength of schedule, winning conference championships, some of the things that we wanted. And I think, most of us feel like they did an excellent job. So I suspect we're not going to change much. We've got a 12-year agreement against this format with 4 teams. 12 years is a long time. I don't know that we won't contemplate change to the format within the 12 years. I suspect we will, but I do not see any serious discussion about 8 in the near term.
We had a really nice chat with David Shaw and other coaches in your league before the season about the 8 versus 9. Obviously, the SEC remained at 8, even though a lot of us here don't like that idea. What do you think are the most important aspects or elements of the Pac-12 playing 9 conference games?
So it goes beyond just playing 9 conference games rather than 8. our conference tends to schedule pretty tough non-conference matchups. We've got 2 or 3 teams that'll play against Notre Dame every year. Obviously, Oregon played the big matchup against Michigan State. UCLA is at a home-and-home with Texas. Several Big Ten teams that we'll play against each year. Unfortunately, not a lot of SEC matchups. We'd like to see more. There's always some ACC matchups our teams are playing. And that's just, the history and culture of our conference is kind of taking on those challenges. So most of our schools will have the 9 conference games plus they'll play, let's say, an A non-conference game against another Big 5 opponent. And, of course, we got the championship game as well. So it's creating interesting conversations for me with our coaches because our coaches sometimes have felt, or worried, I should say, that, are we putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage by playing 9 conference games plus a championship game? That's, one more than any other conference is playing. No other conference is doing that. We've got conferences that play 8 regular season games and a championship game, or conferences that play 9 conference games but no championship games. So the rhetorical question I'll get from our coaches is, why do we want to put ourselves in a position to potentially have one more loss against a tough opponent than others? The response and the flip side is, this is kind of bigger than just what's going to give you the best chance to be in a playoff. There's more at stake for our schools. Moreover, I've felt that with the new playoff, you're going to have teams bunched in clusters with similar records, and that if the committee follows through on the mandate, which is rewarding strength of schedule and quality wins, that extra game will help us when separating similarly situated teams. Strength of schedule ought to help us, and I think it did this year. I think at various times during the year, Oregon was the highest-ranked one-loss team. Arizona, might have been the highest ranked 2-loss team. Certainly got into the top 10 at the end of the year, even with that extra loss in the championship game. So I think in this new era where we're dealing with a human committee, I think that having a stronger strength of schedule and playing that 9th game may serve to benefit you more often than it might hurt you.
Larry, it was 2 weeks ago tonight. Your league had its championship game at a new location, a different approach. Where are you on that, and where does the Pac-12 go in the future?
So the first 3 years of us having a championship game, we decided to do it on campus to reward the team that had the best overall record by letting them host that game, similar to the way the NFL playoffs would work. Then Levi Stadium came along, the new home of the San Francisco 49ers, $1.2 billion state-of-the-art venue in a central location in our conference. And we thought it was a great opportunity to play on a big stage in a new venue. Our coaches, our student-athletes were excited about it. Partners were excited about it. So we've decided to try the neutral site model for 3 years. So this year was the first year of a 3-year deal.
Finally, the Pac-12 was at the vanguard of expansion several years ago. Not to go back and regurgitate all that happened, but where are we? Not so much in the Pac-12, but in college athletics. Do you think things are pretty well firm, or do you see this changing down the road?
I think we're firm. I guess the only possible significant change I see on the horizon would be if the Big 12 seriously considered expansion in the context of considering championship game, but certainly we're not spending any time thinking about it. Very happy with 12. Don't intend to expand. I don't hear any rumblings coming from any other of our peer conferences. So I think we're going to go through a period of calm, I expect. But if you look at the history, it seems like these things go in waves of expansion, and things settle down for a while, then there might be something else that triggers a wave of expansion. So, may not be forever, but certainly for the foreseeable future, I don't expect more expansion.
And in terms of the 4-team playoff, Oregon, a participant, the Pac-12 has won national championships, although it has been a while. What would be the significance of Oregon winning the first college football playoff for your league?
I think it would be huge. During the BCS era, I think we were only in the championship game twice. The playoff I think we'll see the Pac-12 have an opportunity more often to play for championships. So I'm kind of delighted with that step. I think this was the first year Oregon won a Heisman Trophy, and it's the first time in 10 years that a representative from the Pac-12 won a Heisman Trophy, not since Reggie Bush, and then we had two in a row, Reggie Bush and then Matt Leinart the year before. So I think Oregon's ascendancy, their place in the playoff, is indicative of a rise of Pac-12 football. But I've said consistently that until a Pac-12 team wins the national championship game, I think there'll still be a perception lag, and I don't think the Pac-12 will be considered the elite football conference in the country. I think most people have seen from a depth standpoint and in terms of elite teams at the top as having made a lot of progress and being real close with the SEC. Certainly, people can debate different aspects of that comparison. Certainly happy to be considered right there, but I think, to the winner goes the spoils and the bragging rights, and I don't think, rightly so, I don't think we'll be considered the elite until we have a team winning that final game.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
How much more relaxed we all looked the first week of the season than 20 weeks into it. Good times. Phyllis, I'm just trying to think. So Phyllis had her big Sports Center moment last year. She was on His and Hers. She had another meltdown after Ole Miss that was literally on every show at ESPN. It ran all night and all day on Sports Center. 2 weeks ago, where were we? 3 weeks ago when we were the final weekend of the season, the Iron Bowl weekend, Phyllis was on Sports Center with me. I mean, has any person that calls in a radio show ever had more run than Phyllis?
No, she is undoubtedly the most famous fan in sports. I mean, forget about college football. You can compare to, say, Jack Nicklaus out there and people who care about NBA basketball, Jack Nicholson. She's the most famous fan of sports. I mean, give me one more. I mean I'm on forget about celebrities. We're talking real people here.
I'm on the Bowl Mania college football special Sunday night on ESPN, and Kevin Naganda does I do a hit, pick Alabama to win the Sugar Bowl, and what does he say? What do you expect? He's afraid Phyllis is going to call. I mean, Phyllis is just there was a time when there were other callers to the show that mattered. There were other callers that people knew about, like I'm.
And Phyllis is a wonderful person. Paul, I was listening to your first caller, and he was from New York. I can't remember his name.
Graham.
And Graham. And I thought he had an excellent call. I'm assuming, him being from New York, this is he's new to the program. And he can't hear it live, and he's going to the podcast, and he's depending on the podcast because he wants to hear the entire show. And that leads me to this. He's a new guy, and he doesn't know, because the show has changed. It's evolved, and it's grown in a lot of different ways, some fantastic ways, some ways that have taken to get a little used to. But could you imagine if Graham had heard this show 10 years ago? And he used a very interesting word. He used experience. He said in order to capture the experience, he wants to hear the whole show. I wish he was listening back when I started listening, because in the words of Jimi Hendrix, I'll say this: have you ever been experienced? Well, I have. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Larry is up next in Missouri.
Hey, Mr. Finebaum, make you a long day.
Oh, well.
Hey, great. Hey, it was a good interview with old Larry Scott. The guy's...
I like Larry.
Yeah, I can see he's a good commissioner. He talks really fast and packs in a lot of information there. And I think he might be the commissioner of the 2015 National Champs. We'll just have to see about that one. But, I wanted to throw my support, too, behind. I know it's out of your hands, but... the podcast, people are just up in arms all over that thing. I know So I'm just going to express, hopefully the suits up top will reconsider that, the people want it. And, I know you do too. So hopefully they'll get that straightened out. And I did want to say thanks to Big Ten John and yourself for signing my book. I got it back today. I really appreciate that. And I'm not going to mention the part where you wrote a whole new chapter in the back about me. Get mad. So I'm going to leave that off now. If you can just send me Jennifer Anderson a bottle of whiskey, I really like you guys.
On the way.
Last thing I'll say is it is a Christmas season, and it's the time of miracles. And just yesterday, I heard Larry from Shelby, bless his heart. He sounded like he just blowing about half a liter. And it's so good to see him out of that iron lung. Thanks, Paul. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Larry. Thank you so very much. Debbie in Kimberly, Alabama.
Hi, Paul.
Debbie.
And John. Merry Christmas to both of y'all.
Merry Christmas.
And I would like to say I love the fireplace. I'm expecting you to take off your jacket and start sweating any minute now.
Debbie, just hearing your voice makes me sweat.
Oh, my gosh. I have watched you for so long and been so scared to call in because I sound like a country bumpkin, which I am.
Debbie, do you realize the cities that I have lived in my life?
Oh, I bet you. I imagine you've been everywhere.
Well, not really. I was born in Memphis. I went to college in Knoxville. I spent a brief period of time in Louisiana. I spent most of my life in Alabama. So do you think I have heard it all?
You've heard it all, then. So you're used to my voice, then.
Yes, indeed.
Well, I just want to ask you about...
it's not like I moved here from Brussels to do this show.
From Brussels? Well, I knew you didn't have an accent or anything, and I read your column when the Birmingham News and all. They're back years ago.
I am Southerner to the core. I mean, and by the way, I'm not. I mean, my family was not. I mean, everyone in my family was from the north, but I was born in the south
and raised
in the south, and have never lived anywhere
I knew that's the reason
north
I loved
of
you
Memphis.
so much. Loved you as a person. And John, too. Y'all have the greatest show. I can be depressed because, I had buried a son, and I can watch you when you come on, and it just, brightens my whole day.
Debbie, that means a lot, and obviously...
And what the big swagoo said yesterday really touched me, and that's what I've said. A parent never needs to bury their child. That's not the correct order.
My
mother
said that when I was young, friend passed away, and not to take you down that awful road, but it's an adage that I think every parent believes in, and unfortunately, people like you have had to live.
It's just I don't know about kids these days. Like y'all were talking yesterday, they don't value life anymore. But do you think our boys' Roll Tide is going to pull it out New Year's Day?
Debbie, I do.
Great.
I do.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Okay.
I love you, love John. Merry Christmas to y'all and y'all's families, and have a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Debbie. Same to you. We'll talk very soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
I'm not saying this because it's my alma mater, and I'm not saying this because we had a great time, but we were talking about it last week, 2 weeks ago in Atlanta, but we didn't take a vote. But if we did, one of our favorites, I'll just say one of our favorites, although it was my favorite, was in Knoxville 3 or 4 weeks ago when we were up there on the Hill on a gorgeous late November day, and we were hosted by the University of Tennessee and our next guest, Coach Butch Jones. And, Coach, it was special, and I know the season has ended, and you're getting ready for the bowl game, so hopefully you've had at least 30 seconds to catch your breath.
Well, we have, and first of all, happy holidays, Paul. It's been great, being in bowl preparation and the extra practices for our young football team, but also in the strength and conditioning is room to continue to grow and develop our football program. And then grades came out, and we ended up with a 2.77 overall GPA for our football team and over 46 individuals with a 3.0. So complete culture change. We're winning off the field, and we're starting to win on the field now as well.
And, Coach, I know you've talked about that, and great coaches are also great teachers. And I mean, there was a time in my life when I snickered. I'm not snickering anymore. Explain to the audience how important that classroom is in relation to the classroom when you're teaching football.
Well, it's very important. It's about the game of life. And, we want our players to be equipped for life after football. And student athletes. So academics are the forefront of our football program, and I really believe you got to win inside out. And what I mean by that is you have to win inside the locker room, you have to win in the classroom, and then that translates onto the field and winning football games as well. And there's a culture, there's a standard, there's an expectation here, and our players are holding each other accountable, and it's been great to see.
Tennessee has been absent from postseason for a number of years. You knew that as you were being introduced for the first time. The game against Iowa, how special is it, and what does it mean?
Well, it's very special, Paul, and it means a lot to our football program, especially for our seniors. Our football team has never been to a bowl game. I believe one player went, and that's our punter, Matt Darr. So everyone else, this is a brand-new experience for them. So just very, very proud of all the hard work our players have put in, especially our seniors. They've been through so much, and now to lead and play in a January bowl game is very, very critical for us. The Tax Slayer Bowl, the 70th annual. It's part of the great pageantry of college football, but also the standard, the expectation that this freshman class has brought in. So again, it's been instrumental in everything: recruiting, development of our football team, but also a reward for our great fan base as well.
You alluded to it a minute ago, and you always hear coaches talk about it, but it's the extra time. How do you break down the preparation in terms of extra time so younger players get an opportunity, and where do you finally draw the line and start getting ready for the game?
Well, there's really three segments to bowl preparation, and that first segment, which we talk about, is just the overall fundamentals, the fine details of what it takes to play winning football, going back, redefining yourself, individual improvement both on the field and in the strength and conditioning room. And then you move into the next phase is your game plan and your installations. And that's really kind of what we're going through right now. And then the last phase is your game week preparation. But what I found with going to bowl games is we try to treat this week as game week. And then we'll give the kids a few days off to go home for the holidays, and then we'll be back in Jacksonville. We come back on the 27th and leave for Jacksonville on the 28th. So we've had some very spirited practices, and then try to mix some things up. We went and visited Gatlinburg, Tennessee yesterday, and what a great, great experience in the aquarium and the entire community coming out and greeting us. So that was kind of a mini bowl trip, so to speak.
How do you, and I realize this is a good thing, not a bad thing, but how do you tamp down expectations, forgetting this game, and I know you can't, but fans are fired up in Knoxville. I saw it firsthand when we were on campus, and they're trying to get as much as they can, and you have recruiting going on, which I know is quite good. So how do you finish the season, but also let fans enjoy the moment, look ahead, but not get things out of control?
Well, I'll continue to educate our great fan base, and they're very well educated. They know we still have a long ways to go and a lot of work to do, but I think they're very excited because they see great, great progress, great strides being made in a winning culture in terms of on the field, off the field, our style of play, our team chemistry, everything that's associated with where we want to be in our football program. But Paul, you also want to be part of a football program that does have great expectations and high expectations, and we definitely have that at Tennessee.
I realize it is the holidays and you have your own bowl game to prepare for, but with so many bowl games on, I think there's 39 altogether, do you want your players watching these games at night, or would you prefer them thinking about the one game on January 2nd?
Well, I like them watching the games. I like them seeing the competitive nature of the games, the excitement that bowl season brings about, and now to be involved in it. And I want them to enjoy every aspect of it because they've been at home sitting on the couch watching these games. Now they're going to be on the bowl site. Now they're playing for something. So I want them to be able to take it all. And I do think the bowl system is very, very important for college football, and it's what makes college football very special.
You certainly know about Oregon. You were out there last year. You know about Alabama, obviously, being a regular opponent. Just some final thoughts on this 14 playoff, how it came about, and what are you looking for when you're able to look? I realize you have a game the next day. You may not be staying up too late that night and watching.
I think it's very exciting for college football. I think it's added another dynamic to college football. But again, the bowl system is very, very important. I do see the playoff system possibly expanding to maybe 8 teams now, but I think Alabama's a very, very talented football team, and they're a great representative of the Southeastern Conference and everything that goes on in this great football conference. So it's going to be great to be a fan, kind of sit back. We'll be in Jacksonville getting ready to play the next day, but just looking forward to all the festivities that it brings about.
Speaking of festivities, Coach, you mentioned at the beginning, but certainly our best to you in the holiday season. It's been really cool getting to know you more and better throughout the off season and through the season, and we're certainly pulling for you against Iowa.
Well, thanks again for all you do for college football and this great football conference as well, and go Vols.
Thank you, Coach. Best wishes. Butch Jones, the head coach at the University of Tennessee. I guess we can finally show some partiality about pulling for Tennessee. Not that that was anything we haven't been doing, or at least some of us haven't been doing for a long time.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We've talked a lot in recent days about the situation at South Carolina. A week ago, we learned that they had sold very few tickets to the bowl game. Spurrier made some comments about how long he would be there. Later, he tried to walk them back. Recruiting seems to be under, I wouldn't say siege, but certainly under great conversation. So let's find out what's going on. Willie T. Smith covers South Carolina for the Greenville News. Joins us. Willie, thanks so much for the time. I can only imagine how interesting it's been lately covering the Gamecocks.
Yeah, it really has. One of the things that's great about covering Spurrier is you never know what he's going to say, but I guess one of the last things he said has really gotten him in a little bit of trouble. And as I heard you mention, he tried to walk it back the other day, but I don't know how successful that was.
Yeah, why don't you, Willie, for those who haven't followed it as closely as some of us, maybe kind of take us through the timeline, what he said initially, the reaction, and where we are today.
Well, I guess for several weeks prior to the end of the season, he never would address his future and how long he would be there. And then immediately following the Clemson game, the Monday following the Clemson game, he actually came out and said he would be back, but, and he expected he would be there another 2 to 3 years. As soon as he said that, obviously rival recruiters jumped on that as they should. And, a lot of recruits, at one point, a recruiting class that was rated number 2 in the nation, guys just started peeling off. And I think for a while they could explain that away because they had several kids, a couple who left who decommitted because of academic reasons. They weren't going to be able to get into school. Another whose mother was ill in Virginia, and he decided to stay closer to home. So those could be explained away. But last week on Monday night, a kid by the name of Mark Fields, who is probably the best recruit they had, a cornerback from Charlotte, whose dad played for the Carolina Panthers for several years. He decommitted, and he was probably a kid that was more gung-ho about coming to South Carolina than any they had. And the alarming thing about that was he decommitted after Spurrier's in-home visit. He said that Spurrier basically didn't clear anything up and made things even muddier than they were before, basically just giving them the same answers he had given us about assistant coaches having multi-year contracts and, basically, the PR line. So when he decommitted, and he's probably going to end up at Clemson unless things change now, Spurrier came out after practice on Wednesday, and that's when he gave us the 4 to 5 year thing. Said Ray Tanner wanted to add a year to his contract, which is already a 4-year contract. And, and he told us about the mid-year recruits that he had gotten, and they have gotten some very good recruits. They've got 9 kids coming in January, which is more than I can remember. Most of them are defensive ends and defensive tackles and linebackers, and as you know as well as I do, that's what they need the most. So the last 2 days he's basically been doing his best, to pump up the program, pump up recruiting, that kind of thing, that's basically where it is right now.
Willie, what would the temperature reading be of the fan base?
What I would call the vocal minority there, you would be surprised. I mean, I'm amazed at the people who are on the fan sites and that kind of stuff. A lot of them are yelling for him to retire or for Ray Tanner to fire him. I'm amazed. I'm a little amazed at some of the responses. I guess a lot of them don't realize that they aren't, that they haven't always been a power and think that they can get anybody they want. But I've really been surprised that there have been so many anti-Spurrier. There's so much anti-Spurrier feelings out there right now, which a few months ago you never would have thought you would see at South Carolina.
Willie, what's the situation of defensive coordinator? And before you answer, was Will Muschamp offered the job? Did he play a role, or did Spurrier just take a powder on that?
I don't think he was offered the job, but I do think they had some serious conversations, and for whatever reason, I think in the last moment, Spurrier kind of pulled off. I know he wasn't a fan of the head coach in waiting thing, although I'm not sure that they had to give him Muschamp that official title to attract him. I know Ray Tanner, athletic director at South Carolina, was all in and was helping to do what he could. But from what I can gather, and none of us know the complete story, but from what I can gather, it seems like the guy who pulled off of this thing at the last minute was Spurrier.
Whoa. So, I mean, so you believe, is it your best guess that Muschamp's camp was trying to angle for at least a verbal coach in waiting type position?
I think that was the only way they would have been able to attract him to the position. I know he and Spurrier actually get along very well. They're actually pretty good friends. It looked like a good fit. And like I said, and I don't want to go all the way and say that Muschamp would have definitely taken the job, but I think he was very interested in it.
How did those fans who are already pretty angry react to Muschamp then showing up at Auburn?
Oh, I think the fan base is very upset. Some of them, had already had Muschamp coming, already had a lot of his defensive staff coming with him. They were already fantasizing about how great life would be with Muschamp as their defensive coordinator. So it hasn't gone over very well, and frankly, I guess they're wanting to see what's going to happen next. It looks like, in some capacity, Lorenzo Ward, who is the defense coordinator now, is probably going to stay on staff. I think Spurrier really likes him and wants him on staff, whether it's as defense coordinator or something else, because he's one of their best recruiters, which has a lot to do with it as well. And nobody knows what's going to happen next. Don't know will Ellis Johnson possibly come here, or will it be someone else? No one really knows, and I don't think we will know anything probably. He says after the bowl game, but I have a feeling it's probably not going to happen until after the coaches' convention.
Willie, a week ago the story came out that Carolina had sold 700 tickets out of an 800 allotment to the Independence Bowl. Has that number changed? I'm wondering if it's gone down. If people have turned their tickets in.
Well, I don't think it's changed much. You have to feel kind of sorry for the Independence Bowl. Obviously, South Carolina hasn't sold a lot of tickets. In Miami, if they're playing the game in Miami, who knows how many people they would have there. No, but the fan base is not excited about the trip at all. And frankly, it's a tough trip. Independence Bowl got the short end of the straw, getting two teams from about as far away as they could be from Shreveport to come there. But I would guess maybe in the end there could be 1,500 tickets sold or something like that. And South Carolina will buy some and probably give them to military people or something like that. But no, the fan base is not excited about this game at all.
What if South Carolina loses this game? How will that change? I mean, a win I don't think is going to make much difference. It's still over Miami. But what happens if the Gamecocks lose? How does that change, or does it change any of this conversation?
I don't think a win or a loss changes the way people feel. Well, I shouldn't say people. The way a lot of fans feel about this season. They've pretty much already thrown in the towel. I think they've come to the point to think that, South Carolina, a team with very little history, was going to win 11 games every year. That was kind of a given, they thought. And no, I don't think either way. It changes opinions.
I realize nothing's absolute, but regardless of the outcome, maybe a win, maybe a loss, what number would you put on Steve Spurrier deciding after this game in Shreveport to retire?
Probably 1%.
That low?
Yeah, I don't. I never really put any stock in him retiring this year. And I understand how he left Florida, and how he left Washington. But this is his last rodeo, and I just didn't see him walking away, wanting this season to be be his legacy. And frankly, especially yesterday, but he seemed to be the old Spurrier yesterday. He was very upbeat, cracking jokes about, Shreveport, giving us a history on Shreveport and who's from there, and really trying to pump up the bowl game. And that was the first time in a while that he's kind of been his old self. He claims that the 2 to 3 year thing came, he said that right after the Clemson game. He said he was still a little depressed over the season and what happened against Clemson. That's why he said it. I don't know if that's true or not. I kind of believe that was the way he was thinking at the time. Now, what he's thinking now, I don't know, but I don't see him retiring after this game.
Finally, Willie, I appreciate everything. I realize no one's a soothsayer. This season isn't over yet. But if you had to look ahead to next season, knowing what you do about personnel, the schedule, what number would you put on wins and losses for South Carolina?
I would say the top number for them, if everything goes right, would probably be maybe 8-4, and the bottom number would be another 6-6 season, probably somewhere in there. I predicted 8-4 this year. I got in a lot of trouble with the fan base for that one because they all thought that they were going to be a Final Four team. But but this year they could have won a few more games this year. Actually, if they had, as fourth quarters they had. But I would say their best possible bet would be probably 8-4, and they could end up 6-6. Kind of like this year.
So the future is not exactly so bright. You need to wear shades to be able to see the Gamecocks in the future. Anyway, thank you. Great report, Willie. You laid it on the line here, and I don't think this will be the last time we talk about this subject.
All right, thanks a lot.
You got it. Willie T. Smith painting a bleak picture for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Started the season ranked in the top 10, the pick to win the SEC East. They end the season in the Duck Commander Independence Bowl in Shreveport.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN Radio app.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.